This footage wasn't supposed to change anything. It was meant to pass unnoticed, archived, ignored, forgotten. But once viewers began slowing it down frame by frame, something felt wrong. Movements didn't line up. Reactions came too late. And the more people watched, the clearer it became. This wasn't just footage of a chaotic moment. It was footage that raised questions no official explanation ever answered. Because when you look closely, it's not what happens that's most unsettling. It's what doesn't happen. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Before we go any further, take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who follows true crime and unresolved cases. Most importantly, comment below with your thoughts as we go through this. And let me know where you're watching from. Because in stories like this, the details matter. And so do the questions. According to official accounts, what happened that day was sudden, chaotic, and ultimately unavoidable. The event was described as a controlled, high-security appearance. A professional security team was present. Protocols were said to be in place. When the incident occurred, authorities maintained that everything unfolded within seconds. That the response was immediate. That the situation was quickly contained. And that all appropriate actions were taken as expected. Statements released afterward emphasized confusion, crowd noise, and the unpredictability of live environments. The public was assured that there was no broader failure, just an unfortunate moment that spiraled too fast for anyone to stop. In the days that followed, the narrative remained consistent. Officials reiterated the same timeline. Media outlets echoed the same explanations. And for a while, that seemed to be the end of it. But, as often happens in cases like this, the official story didn't end the conversation. It started a different one. Because when independent viewers began examining the footage tied to that day, they noticed details that didn't quite fit the timeline they'd been given. And that's where things began to shift. The footage didn't surface with a press conference or an announcement. It appeared quietly, shared, reposted, clipped, and slowed down by viewers who were simply trying to understand what they were seeing. At first glance, it looked unremarkable. Just another angle. Another recording from a crowded, confusing moment. The more people watched it, the more attention it demanded. This wasn't footage captured from far away or after the fact. It showed the moments surrounding the incident up close. The seconds before. The instant everything changed. And the response that followed. What drew people in wasn't shock or graphic detail. It was behavior. Where certain people were standing. Who moved and who didn't. How long it took for reactions to begin. Viewers started asking simple questions. Why did some individuals appear unusually calm? Why did others hesitate instead of responding immediately? And why did the scene seem to pause, if only briefly, at a moment when urgency should have taken over? Nothing in the footage outright contradicted the official story. But it didn't fully support it either. And that gray area, that space between what was said and what was seen, is where curiosity turned into concern. Because once footage exists, it becomes its own witness. And this footage was telling a story that didn't feel finished. When viewers began slowing the footage down, second by second, the focus shifted from the event itself to the reaction surrounding it. In real time, everything looks chaotic. But when the footage is examined frame by frame, patterns begin to emerge. Some individuals react instantly, their bodies turning, their posture changing, their attention snapping toward the source of danger. Others don't. A few remain still longer than expected. Some glance around before moving. Others appear to wait, almost as if expecting direction. Viewers noticed moments where hands move subtly. Small gestures that could mean nothing. Or something. The timing of those movements became a point of interest. Not because they proved intent, but because they didn't align perfectly with what most people expect in an emergency response. There are also seconds, brief, but noticeable, where no one seems fully in control of the scene. No clear command. No immediate perimeter formation. Just hesitation. To trained eyes, hesitation stands out. And while no single frame provides an answer, together they raise a larger question. If this was a tightly coordinated security operation, why does the response look so fragmented in these critical moments? The footage doesn't accuse. It doesn't explain. It simply shows. And sometimes, that's enough to make people pause and start asking why. As attention shifted to the footage, public focus naturally moved toward those closest to the situation, and one name kept coming up. Erika Kirk. Not because of something she said, but because of what she didn't. In the immediate aftermath, many expected a clear public response. Questions about planning. Questions about security. Questions about what went wrong. Instead, her public posture took a different direction. Rather than addressing the visible gaps people were pointing out in the footage, her frustration appeared aimed elsewhere, at commentators, online analysts, and anyone continuing to ask questions. That response stood out. Moments like this, silence can be interpreted in many ways. It can be grief. It can be shock. It can be a desire for privacy. But when that silence is paired with active pushback against inquiry, it invites scrutiny. Viewers noticed that certain topics were addressed quickly, while others were avoided entirely. Statements focused on stopping speculation, not clarifying events. And what many found most puzzling was the lack of visible concern directed toward the very systems meant to prevent what happened. No public demand for accountability. No insistence on transparency. No call for detailed explanations. Just a repeated message. Accept the official story and move on. For some, that response felt understandable. For others, it felt incomplete. Because when someone at the center of a tragedy discourages deeper examination, it doesn't close the story. It keeps it open. As more people revisited the footage alongside official statements, attention began to settle on the timeline itself. According to authorities, everything unfolded in a matter of seconds. The incident occurred. Security reacted. The situation was stabilized. But when viewers compared that explanation to what could actually be seen on camera, small inconsistencies began to surface. Not dramatic ones. Moments where reactions appear delayed. Seconds where individuals move out of frame with no clear explanation. Brief gaps where it's unclear who is in control of the scene. In isolation, each of these moments could be dismissed. But together, they form a timeline that feels incomplete. Some viewers pointed out that the response sequence didn't follow what's typically described as standard emergency protocol. Instead of immediate evacuation and perimeter control, there appeared to be hesitation, a pause where decisions hadn't yet been made. There are also questions about positioning. Who was supposed to be where? Who shifted positions moments before everything changed? These aren't accusations. They're observations, And they matter because timelines are the backbone of accountability. When even a few seconds go unexplained, trust begins to erode. The official version of events tells a clean story. The footage tells a messier one. And between those two versions lies a gap that no statement has fully addressed. The presence of security personnel was meant to reassure attendees and maintain order. A professional team was contracted. Protocols were reportedly in place. Training and experience were highlighted in public statements. Yet, when the footage is analyzed, questions emerge about how that response actually played out. Some individuals who were positioned closest to the unfolding chaos seemed delayed in their actions. Others appeared uncertain, looking to colleagues rather than acting independently. Standard emergency procedures, perimeter control, immediate extraction, and coordinated crowd management were inconsistently visible. Observers noted that multiple security members moved from their assigned positions at critical moments. Was this a routine adjustment? Or something more unplanned? The footage doesn't provide a clear answer. Publicly, authorities maintained the official timeline. Media coverage largely repeated these statements. And the security team itself remained largely silent. No detailed interviews. No clarification of actions taken. No public explanation of the apparent discrepancies. It's also notable that some of the security personnel remained connected to the central figures involved after the incident. This continuity raised eyebrows among online analysts, who began tracking affiliations, career histories, and potential overlaps. The key takeaway here isn't motive or blame. It's simple. The role of security is to protect and respond. And in this case, what was expected to happen and what the footage shows do not fully align. The discrepancy doesn't tell the whole story, but it demands attention. Once the footage circulated, the response from mainstream media and the online community diverged sharply. Traditional outlets largely repeated the official story. They highlighted the event, the statements from authorities, and reassurances that protocols were followed. Coverage was factual, concise, and cautious. No deep dive analyses. No frame-by-frame breakdowns. Meanwhile, online investigators, independent analysts, and social media sleuths began to dissect every second of available footage. They slowed videos, overlaid timelines, and highlighted discrepancies between statements and visible actions. Minor gestures, pauses, and positioning became subjects of debate. Every second seemed to matter. Some online observers began compiling records of security personnel, tracing career histories, affiliations, and patterns. They questioned the overlap between private security teams, past experience, and the sequences seen on the footage. Others analyzed statements, comparing what was said publicly to what could be verified visually. This split created two narratives. Official coverage, streamlined, polished, emphasizing control and resolution. Independent investigation, granular, meticulous, questioning inconsistencies. Neither side claimed to have the full picture, but the contrast itself highlighted a critical point. The story, as presented officially, may not capture all the details the public is trying to understand. And for viewers, this divide encouraged them to ask their own questions, to notice gaps, contradictions, and behaviors that remain unexplained. The footage became the common ground, the only neutral witness in a story with multiple interpretations. Perhaps the most striking element of this story isn't what was said, but what wasn't. Several key individuals, including members of the security team, officials, and those closest to the situation, remained silent. No detailed interviews. No public clarifications. No first-hand explanations of actions taken during the critical moments. Silence, in this context, becomes a statement in itself. It allows questions to linger. It leaves gaps where answers should be. Observers also noted the removal or deactivation of digital footprints. Social media accounts disappeared. LinkedIn pages went private. Posts that once shared behind-the-scenes information were deleted. Every action or inaction adds to the sense that there are pieces of the story that the public hasn't seen. At the same time, Erika Kirk's public communications reinforced a singular message. Stop speculation. Accept the official narrative. Move forward. That combination, visible footage showing unusual behavior, paired with silence and selective responses, created a tension the audience couldn't ignore. Intro creamy silent, but it does make the narrative more complex. It forces observers to pay closer attention, to archive, analyze, and debate every available piece of evidence. Because in stories like this, what isn't said can echo louder than what is. Even weeks after the footage emerged, several critical questions remain unanswered. Why did some security personnel appear delayed or hesitant at pivotal moments? Who gave the orders that caused shifts in positioning just before chaos unfolded? Why did Erika Kirk avoid addressing the visible gaps in protocol while focusing attention elsewhere? Was the official timeline fully accurate? Or are there missing seconds that matter? Why were some digital records, social media accounts, and public footprints removed or deactivated after the incident? How did independent investigators manage to piece together details that mainstream outlets never reported? And most importantly, what does the silence from key figures truly mean? These aren't rhetorical questions. They're open threads in a story that is far from complete. The footage, the official reports, and the online analyses all intersect, but they don't converge. Instead, they leave the audience in the middle, forced to reconcile what is visible with what remains hidden. And in that space between the known and the unknown, curiosity grows. Speculation arises. The story refuses to be forgotten. Because in true crime, the questions that go unanswered often matter more than the answers that are given. As the weeks turn into months, the footage remains. Every frame archived, every second analyzed. Yet the story is far from complete. Official statements have been repeated. The media coverage remains cautious. And the individuals closest to the situation continue to offer little clarity. For viewers, the unanswered questions hang heavy. The gaps, the hesitation, the silence, they all create a narrative that refuses to be neatly resolved. In cases like this, it isn't the shocking moments themselves that linger. It's the uncertainty, the knowledge that something happened, and yet something remains hidden. This footage wasn't meant to be seen. And perhaps that is why it unsettles so deeply. Because it shows us a story that doesn't end. A story that forces us to ask questions, to notice patterns, to keep watching, until every piece is explained, until every second is accounted for. This story remains unfinished. And sometimes, what keeps the story? I'm Detective B. If you're fascinated by real life, mysteries, and criminal investigations, tap like, subscribe, and share your opinion in the comments. I'd love to know where you're watching from and what you think about today's case. Make sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new episode.